Hey y'all, welcome back to Right at the Wire. Today we're going to be looking at the Florida Derby. It's the last prep race in Florida prior to the run for the Roses, and it's a full field, so let's take a look and see what we've got. The Florida Derby is a Grade 1 Derby prep at Gulfstream Park for 3-year-olds, run at 1 1/8 miles. If we look at the configuration to the right, we immediately see that it starts on a turn, basically. So there's a tremendous disadvantage to the horses parked on the outside. If they want to get up near the lead, they're going to have to gun it early. And most of them are going to get carried wide, so they're going to lose a lot of ground. And we want to consider that when we're looking at the field. Number 1 is Jungfrau. He's trained by Bill Mott, and the last time we saw this one in the Withers, he didn't do a lick of running. He was very rank early, and I think they pretty much gave up the ghost and just sort of let him get a workout so he gets something out of the race. Before that, he had been improving with each start. His last race against Expect More, he was game all the way through, and just didn't quite have enough. But he did get the win through DQ. Technically, he's a maiden in my book still. I think this one can move forward. I think they're going to send him, given the fact that he's on the rail. So we can probably expect a pretty good effort out of this one. The connections are pretty classy, but I got a feeling because he's trained by Bill Mott, he might get bet down a little bit. And I kind of think there's others in this field who offer some better value. So he's kind of a prohibitive to me, so I'm probably going to toss him. Number 2 is West Coast Cowboy. Safi Joseph has 4 horses in this race, so he's kind of got a kitchen sink approach here. This one ran pretty well in the Holy Bull last time. Seemed to have a fair amount of run left in the stretch, and he galloped out pretty well. So I think 1 1/8 miles isn't going to be an issue for this one. You can see he's improved with every start, and if he takes another leap, I think he could definitely be a contender in this race. And given his running style, the fact that he likes to rate and that he should be able to get to where he wants to early, I think he'd be a good use for the bottom of your tickets. Shank Diesel ran in the Risen Star last and didn't factor whatsoever. And the last couple times he's run in stakes, he really hasn't done much to indicate that he's going to be a contender here. And that Pasco Stakes 3 back is kind of turned into a negative key race with not much coming out of it. So I don't see much improvement here, and his buyers are clearly light, so he's an easy toss for me. Number 3 is Mage. His second start was pretty good, considering it was his first around 2 turns at the graded stakes level. He is a little green, though. He broke poorly, and consequently they had to rush him up to get him in position, and it cost him late. He still hung around for a pretty good 4th, and I think he can build on that race. The thing you do want to note, though, is he got an 89 in his maiden, and he got an 88 in this race. So he didn't necessarily improve buyer-wise, but class-wise, I think he ran a pretty good race, and I think he belongs here. There's a good chance he's going to be able to get to where he wants to, given his post position, and he could very well wire this field. I think that's a distinct possibility. Mr. Peaks, I really like in this race. He's another one of Safi's. His last effort against a la carte, who was a really heavy favorite, he gave him all that he could handle, and he fought gamely all the way down the stretch. He is moving to 2 turns for the first time, but here's the thing. He's got Edwin Gonzalez on him. He has a 36% rate in roots. That is clearly far and away the highest percentage of any of the other jockeys. So I think he's got the right pilot aboard for this one. I think with his post position, he could get in the lead. I'm going to guess they're going to try to rate Mage just off of this one a little bit because I think they don't want to waste energy, and I think they think he's got a solid possibility for a win. So there's a good possibility that Mr. Peaks can get on the lead, and he could very well wire this field if he freaks. He's at 30-1, so you're going to get outstanding value, and I think he's a liberal use in this case. Nautical Star won his last race. He's another one by Safi, and he had to fight pretty gamely to get the nod. It was at 6 furlongs, but he did have a wide trip, and kind of lends you to believe that more ground will be okay for this one, although I'm not sold on it. The fact that he runs from off the pace, I think, is a really good thing. Given his post position, he should get the position he wants. I don't think he's fast enough to win this race, but at a price, could he get underneath in the exotics? Absolutely. So I think he's a use in that regard. Il Miracolo, I don't understand this horse at all. Antonio Sano, I mean, I guess the owners just have Derby fever with this one. You look at his pedigree, you can understand why. He's by Gunrunner and he's got Tappet underneath. That's 2 turns all day. And I guess they just assume that one day he's going to wake up. Well, if you look at his running lines, he's really not improving. In fact, he's regressing. And he's at competition levels that he clearly doesn't belong at. And so he's just getting more and more frustrated and he's falling further back. So I really wish they would stop running this one at stakes levels because he clearly doesn't belong. So I think he's a pretty easy toss. Mr. Ripple is apparently Safi's best hope in this race. He's got Edgar Zayas on him. That's his A rider. And this one is, he's got an early running style, so I think he'll be up near the lead. Thing is, though, he's not really improving. His class levels haven't advanced per race. They've stayed at the same. And you can see, bar-wise, he's kind of stuck around 80. And I don't think that's going to cut it here. And I really don't. I don't see him as being a valid contender here since he's not improving. So he's a toss. Cyclone Mischief, good race, bad race. We've seen this one at his best. We've seen him at his worst. I think Dale Rome just finally figured out to put this one on the lead. That's where he does his best running. He is at a disadvantage being on the outside, and there is early speed to his inside. So I think it's going to be very difficult for this one to get to where he wants to and be able to stick around late because he's going to have to do a lot of running early. He has the ability to get up near the lead. I'm just not so sure he's going to be able to, given the other speed to his inside. You see Tyler Gaffalione went off of him. He's over in Arkansas with Red Route 1 for the Arkansas Derby. But he's got a good pilot. Javier Castellano's a nice jockey. And if anybody can get him where he wants to be, he can do it. So, I mean, 8-1 to me is a little bit of an underlay given the inconsistent nature of this one. But I have a feeling he's going to run a decent race. So maybe you use him on the bottom. But I just don't really like that price, and I think there's better value. Fort Bragg is, we know the deal with him is it's all between the ears. He clearly has the talent, and it's just a question of whether he's going to put it together. Now, in the San Felipe, he did have an excuse as Hijazi swung out, and it did interrupt his run down the stretch. But the thing is, he really didn't seem terribly interested in doing anything about it. And that's what gives me cause for concern. He ran a pretty dull 5th and didn't, just really wasn't much of a factor. Could he put it together and run a race, a decent competitive race in this one? Yeah, he could. But I'm not willing to hope for it at 5-1. And since he's in the 10 hole, it's going to be difficult for him to get to where he wants to. And when a horse is, got issues between the ears, any type of challenge like this kind of, to me, frustrates them. So I'm gonna pass on this one. Forte is clearly the class of this field. There's no doubt about it. I think he towers over this field, and even not his best effort would probably win this. He's got a couple things working against him. Number one, he is in the 11 hole, and tactically, can this one overcome that? Sure. And I think he can get to where he wants to. And I think he's an absolute win candidate without question. The only thing that I wonder about is he does not need the Derby points for this race. So this is really more just to keep him fit. So will he be tuned up all the way? I'm not overly certain. Does he have to be competitive in this race? Not really. You're going to get an extremely short price on him, and you have to use him. He's an obvious win candidate. But I just have a couple of questions, as I noted, that maybe we can find some value to get the W. WHL, the last time we saw him was in the Sam F. Davis, and he just, he had to check really hard early, and it pretty much ruined his race. And really didn't do any running after that. It was just really just a frustrating effort for all of us because we really couldn't evaluate him. It was his debut at 3. If you look at his 2-year-old form, that Remsen was a really nice race. Granted, it wasn't the slop, but I'll tend to believe that this one can be okay on a dry track. And I'll also believe that he'll run better in this race. The 12 hole shouldn't be too much of an issue for this one because he can run off the pace. So I'm thinking with Jose Ortiz on him, he'll probably get to where he needs to be, and then it'll just be a question of if he's good enough. Obviously, the faster the pace is up front, the better his chances. But I don't think even if it's reasonable, I think this one has the talent enough to compete. And 6-1, I probably like a little better price than that. And but I think you got to use him. And I think of all the contenders in here, he's one that's demonstrated from his prior 2-year-old form that he has the class to be a competitor here. So let's take a look at our top 5 and see how it breaks down. Our top 5 for the Florida Derby are number 1, Forte, clearly the class of the field. And he's got some disadvantages with the post, and I'm not sure he's going to be tuned up all the way, but he towers over this field, and he may not need his best effort to win this one. Number 2 is Mage. I think he's in a good post position. He should get to where he wants to, and if he builds off his Fountain of Youth effort, I think he's a definite contender and possibly a win candidate. Number 3 is WHNL. He's going to be off the pace, I'm guessing, and if he replicates his form from the Remsen and running late, I think he's a contender in this race. Number 4 is Mr. Peaks. You're getting excellent value for a front runner in a good post position, and if things break right, he could very well wire this field in at 30-1. It's excellent value. Number 5 is West Coast Cowboy. Again, ran pretty well in the Holy Bullet. If he builds off that from the good post position, I think he should be able to stalk. And I don't necessarily think he's a win candidate, but I think he definitely could end up in the exotics. So that's our look at the Florida Derby. It's Forte's race to lose for sure, but there are some interesting value prospects, and hopefully we can turn this into a pretty decent wager. I will have a video later this week on the Arkansas Derby, which also looks to be a pretty good race, and so be on the lookout for that. And of course, if you do like what you see here, please like and subscribe, and we do appreciate the viewership, and I'll be talking to you soon.